great deal, where we're making them require that they put the address where they reside, not the properties. Because if you got 10 pieces of property owned by John Smith was putting his address as being each one of those properties. So when you tracked him down, it'd take you 2 days to track him down. And come to find out, John Smith lived in the Lake of the Ozarks or someplace. So.
But the ban is on something that we don't have anyway. It's not a law in place, a state law in place. We don't have it, so we're just saying we're never going to have it. Okay? Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate your time. More time. Good to see you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Did I miss anyone who needed to make an announcement? No? Okay, cool. All right, so next, how to plan for disaster. With the Zombie Squad, Chris Bellers is going to introduce his group.
Hey guys, I've got Chris Sear with me, and I've got Kristen Delgado with me. Yeah, we better go further. That way you don't have to move the cameras.
No, everybody turn your chairs.
That's right, come on, what's all about?
Everybody. So, I'm guessing that most of you guys are wondering who are these weirdos up here. So Zombie Squad is a community-based disaster preparedness and disaster recovery organization. We're a nonprofit company, and we started out with a bunch of guys sitting around in a basement watching bad zombie movies, yelling at people for making terrible decisions when the zombies come. AKA, don't go in there. Actually, I think some of those movies we were watching right here.
Yeah, actually, we had our first ever movie night, which was a fundraiser for Feed My People in this building, and we watched the remake of Night of the Living Dead on that wall. But anyway, so there's possible there's some like zombie residue on that.
So Zombie Squad as a concept started out with a bunch of people getting together to watch zombie movies and chastising people for making terrible decisions, and then thinking, well, the zombies were coming, I'd do this instead, and then realizing once we had a list put together that those same things would work for an earthquake or a tornado. I mean, just basic preparedness stuff that works in pretty much any event. And we realized that we kept doing movie nights and people kept showing up for them because they like zombie movies. We realized that we could use zombies as a generic metaphor for any crap that might go wrong. And it worked great. So now we've got this organization. How many paying members are we up to?
I have no idea, but I know that our website right now is getting over 250,000 hits a day.
We have 2,300 paid members. We have 22 chapters across the U.S., Canada, and the UK. Not across Europe, like the big country. Actually, it's, I don't know, geography. I'm American. And then we also have 22,000 members on our forum every day who talk about such important things as to what zombie movie you'd rather be trapped in, and what kind of garden you can do that you can have in your backyard that might get you through the fall should you not be able to make it out to the grocery store should you lose your job.
Also about green living, self-sufficiency, and more than anything, I think the thing that drew me in is a big concentration on community involvement. Working within your neighborhood, bringing back a sense of community. And that's why all of our chapters, before they can even become a chapter, have to hold a charity event. And once they are a chapter, have to provide and do at least 3 charity events that are based in their community every year. And that's a big thing, because if disaster strikes, a few years ago when we had all the big storms and our powers were out and the trees were down, did you know your neighbors? Did you know who was alone? Did you know who needed help? Getting that sense of community back is going to make you stronger. Not only as a person and for your family, but it will make the community stronger. And even like what we've been going through in this neighborhood with the crime. All of a sudden, the meeting a couple months ago when everybody showed up. That's the kind of thing we're going for, and that's what we're trying to instill in all of our chapters and members as well.
And so to that end, some of the stuff we do a lot of fundraisers. We work with Feed My People, Operation Food Search, American Red Cross. We do a lot of work with the Red Cross. We do 2 blood drives a year. And actually, we're doing one right here next Saturday.
This Saturday.
Just that.
This, yeah.
This Saturday.
Let me get this on next stuff.
Because it's Halloween.
The 30th?
So right, so it's going to be a more or less Halloween flavored Zombie Squad blood drive event, and so if all you guys have tasty blood, come on out and bleed for us. We definitely appreciate it. If you know somewhere where you could put one of these up, all your little packets have one, and please bribe and cajole people into coming and giving blood here, because this will be great. This is the first time we've used Grand Oak Hill Center. Usually we do it way up on Hampton, and none of us like driving away. But what I actually came to talk to you guys about this time was this flyer we put together called Bugging In on a Budget. So when any type of disaster hits, you basically have two options. You can either bug in, where you go to ground and stay at home, or you bug out and hit the road and, you know, and take your important stuff with you and look for shelter somewhere else. So we've got all kinds of flyers and pamphlets and stuff to cover bugging out, like what you should put in, you know, in a bag, what you should have on hand, what you should have ready to go. And we've got some flyers back there to that extent, but we really don't talk a lot about bugging out, or bugging in rather, which is the more comfortable place to be anyway. I mean, you know, it's better to be at home if you can help it. So to that end, I mean, no one wants to be that person that gets snowed in and you open the refrigerator door up and there's, you know, 2 cans of beer and half a bottle of mustard. So
Half a bottle of red.
So what we want to talk about were cheap, primarily cheap things and attainable things that you can do to make your existence much more comfortable. Not necessarily for the end of the world, but just say, like, you know, whatever. I mean, if you know,
It gets snowed in.
if the power goes out for, you know, another 2 weeks straight.
There are tornadoes tonight.
There are
supposed to be tornadoes.
What? Bad storms today.
Later, after this, there are tornadoes.
So right, so one of the things that we talk about in Zombie Squad is don't prepare for the end of the world, prepare for what might happen next Thursday. And so, I mean, just the much more mundane and boring and uncomfortable disasters rather than, you know, earth-shattering apocalyptic. So the things that you really have to worry about, we've got listed on here: water, food, overall safety, and communications. And water is probably, you know, the number one. You know, you can only go a couple days with no water. And I mean, there's any number of things that can happen, be it flood or earthquake or whatnot, that render water unfit to just pull out of the tap and drink. And so the Red Cross and FEMA and pretty much everyone else recommends that you keep at least 1 gallon a day per person in your house. Now, I mean, a gallon a day is quite a bit of water. And so you've basically got 3 options for that. You can either buy a bunch of flat packs of the little 20-ounce bottles, but that gets expensive really fast. You can keep a bunch of bleach in your house and then just use whatever crud comes out of the tap, even if there's a boiler. One good thing that we've seen a lot of people in our organization do is, and this makes it really cheap, if you've got a basement, if you go on Craigslist, you can buy these used juice barrels. And they sell them as rain barrels, and they sell them for all kinds of stuff. You can buy ones on Craigslist that used to be used for like 50 gallons of juice. Actually, the casinos go through a lot of them because that's what they use for their juice mixers. And they're like $10 for this 20-gallon barrel. If you guys want to use them as a rain barrel and put them in a gutter and have them fill up, then you will always have 20 gallons of water you can put bleach in and drink in an emergency. If you put them in your basement and pre-treat them with just a little bit of bleach, that water will keep safe for 6 months, and then you just go down and keep putting more bleach in it every 6 months, and you basically got enough water to get you through pretty much anything.
What's the formula for that bleach?
The Red Cross recommends it is 2 drops per gallon. I usually double it up just to be safe. One of the problems, 4 drops of bleach in a gallon of water isn't that much, but one of the things that people don't realize is that bleach expires. It's kind of like hydrogen peroxide. The longer it sits around, the weaker it gets. And so if you've got a bottle of bleach that's been down there since the Carters and stuff, it's probably not going to be that powerful anymore. So, like I said, and 4 drops in a gallon really doesn't make it that bleachy. If it tastes bleachy, you can shake it up, you can pour it back and forth between glasses, and all that bleach smell comes right out.
You really need the bleach taste. Just get one of those little lemons, the fake lemons with juice in it. Yeah, that works. It takes the bleach right out.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any actual lemon in those, so let's keep forever. Made us space age polymers. Food. Food is obviously an important one. We always tell people to stock up. You know, the US RDA, whoever decides these things, has decided that grown people need 2,000 calories a day to be, you know, running around. Now, given, I don't know how much you guys need, but the idea is that you don't have to go out and order online this giant $2,000 packet of a food collection to last you for 30 years. I mean, you can just go to Schnucks and buy an extra $5 of canned goods every time you go to the store and just squirrel it away somewhere. A lot of people, I mean, Lord knows there's enough people in Zombie Squad that inadvertently do this. They'll go and they'll buy, oh, look, I went to Sam's Club and I got 50 pounds of rice and 40 pounds of beans. And it's like, well, dude, you don't ever eat rice or beans, and you're going to go nuts if you actually have to try and make that because you don't know how. So we always advise people to stock up on stuff you like to eat. If you like to eat Chef Boyardee, buy that. If you like to eat Chili Man chili, stock up on that. The idea is you want to stock up on cheap stuff that will keep forever, that's reasonably tasty that you can eat. Canned meats. So I mean, like I like Spam. A lot of people don't like Spam, but I mean, stuff that's bad for you actually becomes pretty handy in emergency because you need less of it to get by on. I mean, if you had to survive on canned lima bean or canned green beans and peas, you probably need a lot of it to get by because there's just not that much oomph in them. Peanut butter is a really good one. Peanut butter is cheap. You can go to Aldi's and get big jars of peanut butter for $2, and that stuff, I mean, it keeps forever. Food, nothing keeps forever. So it's important that you remember to rotate your stuff out, which is why it's important to stock up what you like to eat. Otherwise you're just going to have all this gross stuff that just continues to get grosser and grosser in your basement over time. So you look at it and say, oh, this is horrible, what am I doing? And then you go to give it to Feed My People, and Larry Rice hits you over the head and says, why are you giving me this gross stuff that expired 20 years ago?
One good thing about also eating things you like, especially canned foods. Canned foods you can eat cold. A lot of people go out and they buy the Mountain Home stuff you get at REI, that's the freeze-dried, and that stuff's great. Unless you're in a power outage and you don't have a way to cook it.
Oh, you can eat it without water.
It just tastes really bad. Yeah, all of those have to be boiled.
It's like a
So
beef
unless
stew
you have a
Jolly
great camp
Rancher.
stove that you can set up in your living room with a little butane, stick with something that you can possibly eat cold.
I think that half of the people in here who are probably around my age grew up in the Cold War era, and our dads had bomb shelters in the basements, and we had food.
Yep.
My grandpa always did the same thing for the same reason. I don't have a bomb shelter, but I do have a bunch of food down there.
My basement's a fallout shelter.
Yeah, that's what we had.
I used to have our camping stuff with canned goods in the garage, figuring I could get to the garage would be easier to dig out than the house
That's
would
a
be
great
if
idea.
something happened. But so we went out and I thought, well, I better rotate this stuff after, I don't know, maybe a couple of years. Oh, it was horrible.
Well, one of the problems...
You have to be careful. Canned goods do not last forever, contrary to popular
Well, and in a
belief.
garage where you get such a severe temperature change throughout the year, if you've got a nice, cool, dark basement, they will last a little
But
bit
they
longer.
were weeping.
Oh yeah, and that's actually an important thing.
Tomato-based
Where you-
especially.
Where you decide to put your stuff kind of matters. If you put it out in the garage where it's going to be 130 in the summer, and -5 in the winter, it won't last 5 years. It may only last 6 months. Whereas if you keep it somewhere in the basement where it's a constant 65 or 70 and it's dark, you'll get much better lifetime out of it.
One thing like we do at home is I do buy a lot of rice and beans, but I eat a lot of rice and beans. You can't tell. I love it. That's what I cook. But when you buy a new bag, basement, old bag out of the basement, and that's what I cook with for the next month.
That's
And
actually
you just rotate them out like
That's
that.
what we do with my dog food. Actually, I always buy I'll buy 2 bags. Or I bought 2 bags to begin with when I got the dog. When one runs out, I go buy a new one, put it downstairs, and bring this bag upstairs.
Which is an important point. If you've got animals at home, just like kids, make sure you have supplies for them. If you get snowed in for 3 days and you only have 2 cans of Alpo left, and you've got 3 big dogs, you're in
Oh,
trouble.
they'll fix that problem.
Yes, sir. Oh, you're driving the camera. I thought you had your hand up.
Oh.
Okay, so safety. The number one thing that I would be immediately concerned about if we had something like an earthquake or something is a gas leak. Have you guys ever gone downstairs to turn off your gas on the main line?
No.
Okay, so if you haven't, you're probably not going to believe me. If you have, you'll realize that the little tiny bolt on there does not work with human hands. You have to have a wrench for it. Some people use a pipe wrench for it, like a big monkey wrench. My gas line actually, because of the way the little L's and the T's are, I can't fit a pipe wrench on there. they actually make a specific gas shutoff wrench that I